Welcome back to On the Horizon podcast, hosted by Jessie Sage and Melrose Michaels. First, thank you so much for becoming a premium subscriber and supporting our podcast. This is getting you extra exclusive, unheard, and unseen footage from each interview that we have on the horizon. So first, let's dive in with Juniper. What does a revolution look like to you? Since you spoke on that a little bit, we're like, yeah, I do talk about the revolution. What does that vision look like?
I think of Patrick Califia's work, Whoring in Utopia, which is it's a piece from the 80s, but still very relevant. I think he makes a really great argument about how sex work actually will exist post-revolution. But, I don't think that baby commies on Twitter.com takes seriously the assimilation. I mean, every single revolution that we have seen ends up in assimilation. And I'm not sure why that's important to me, but it feels important to acknowledge. And so if we are going to think seriously about some kind of revolution, how do you revolt against power structures without creating new power structures? Even in Occupy Wall Street,
right.
It turned into another hierarchy. It's just who had the bigger tent?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think for me, it's not that I kind of fantasize about the revolution, but I do fantasize about a different world. I don't know how to get there. I don't want to chop anybody's head off or eat the rich, even as I'm wearing guillotine earrings. Okay, I might chop the heads off. But it's weird. It's weird to be a kind of public person, as you both know. I had a leftist dude on Twitter threaten to chop my head off the other day. It's God. Can we not with the chopping of the heads? So long story really long. I don't even know what my conception of the revolution is. We're probably going to destroy the planet before we get there anyway. So
probably it's really likely based on science.
I'm actually interested though. It feels to me like I'm trying to think of the right way to say this. The fallout of this pandemic, which has been pretty tremendous, also is it's been terrible for most people. I think it's also kind of shined a light on how bad our labor policies are and how bad the working conditions are for most people. And I'm wondering if you think that may be that this may galvanize, I know that the fact that so many companies are having to close because nobody will work there anymore. And they're having to, just in really basic jobs, give huge sign-on bonuses just for people to take jobs and everything. I'm wondering if you think that this has the possibility to change things. I know in a conversation that I had with you before, and I think you were totally right about this, that we just adapt very quickly back to old norms. And so I'm wondering what you think about that. From a sociology perspective, do you think that we're on the precipice of change for the better, or are things just falling apart?
Yes. So I read this really interesting piece a few weeks ago arguing that anti-vax and anti-mask folks are subconsciously it's displaced anxiety for fears that capitalism is not working, essentially. And so I think that there's some value in understanding and seeing how fucked up capitalism is, because you have one global pandemic and the entire structure has started to crumble. For those of us who have worked in precarious jobs our whole life, we've seen this our whole lives. But so hopefully hopefully more mainstream people are starting to see the way. I have my mom who was voted for fucking George W. Bush. Even she is I'm not so sure about this capitalist thing. So
I love that.
and not to downplay like the brutality of white people who voted for George W. Like I totally hold her accountable for where we're at for those voting practices in the past. But you know, I think that people recognize that it's not working. Hopefully, we will continue to explore the ways that this system has completely failed everyone. The question is, you know, when I see somebody like Jeff Bezos who decides to go have his own individual, you know, again with the problem of my body, my choice, he chose to put his body on a fucking rocket for 11 minutes rather than solving world hunger. Like, fuck those people. There needs to be something in place that restricts people like that from becoming like that. Or they need to fucking drop acid in the desert and like get a fucking hold of reality.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I don't think that anybody who's ever done acid in the desert would choose to go on a rocket rather than solve hunger.
Do you think that's where a lot of these kind of like the disassociation happens? Like people get so wrapped up in their individual, you know, ideas, life, whatever, that they get disconnected from like connectedness, like humanity, like the core principles.
Maybe. You know, I always think about the anthropological statement that if we were looking at any other primate, like chimpanzees, and there was one chimp that like took all the food away from all the other chimps and buried it in a hole, didn't even eat it, like just hoarded all the food and created mass chaos among his peers because of his behavior, we would be like, there's something profoundly wrong with that chimpanzee. And yet we've made an entire culture and economic structure for humans that privileges and encourages that kind of behavior.
Yeah.
That's interesting too.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother tangent, but it's just really interesting.
Yeah.
I think maybe I'll just say one more thing to that end. Like maybe the best thing for all of us to do, and I think about this a lot, is like if I suddenly won the lottery, I mean, I have these grandiose ideas of like, I would open a safe house for sex workers and blah, blah, blah. And then I often have to be like, okay, but really, would you do that? Or would you go in a rocket to outer space? And I just think we have to at least like interrogate our own selves so that we are not seduced into assimilating into this culture that we've spent our lives fighting against.
Next, let's take a look behind the scenes of our interview with Phoenix Calida. So even when it comes to like physical capital, like I think about like movers, like people help you move from houses. That's a real job and it's seen as work and it's a service. They're using their body, their strength, you know, their physical capital, and that's still labor, but what we do isn't.
Right.
So I just want to say that I have never heard anybody use the term physical capital in a context like this, and I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I love to apply that kind of philosophy to sex work because I think it really drives home the point of us as a service provider, and it's very comparable to other service providers.
Yeah. Well, I think that that's actually like maybe a conversation about how we feel about sex and sexuality, where it's like things that are very common as a sex worker are seen as like really disgusting outside of sex work. But at the same time, like, we tolerate all sorts of disgusting things from workers just because of the capitalistic system that we live in. So like, for example, like everyone will donate to, say, like, for example, like a welder's GoFundMe, right? Because he now has, you know, like some like lung issues because they've just been breathing in whatever the fuck they've been welding for 20 years, right?
Yeah, right.
So like, you know, or even, you know, my partner, like a fucking factor, his knees are shot. This nigga 40 and his knees are gone. Like running up the stairs. But you know, it's that sort of thing. And it's like, but then at the end of the day, why is it embarrassing that I should have to be, you know, that people will talk about my body the way it's being used, but you won't talk about other workers in the same way. And so what you're really telling me is that you're just fetishizing workers that you do as seeing like quote unquote real work.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But you don't.
I mean, if your partner has to go and get like his knees looked at or whatever, and we have to go get STI tests, like why is there like shame in one thing and like not in the other?
Exactly. And that's like a huge problem for me. And I think that it also really dismisses the amount of like risks that working class people take, because working class people do dangerous shit all the time just to try to survive. I'm not going to shame it. But like, I'm also a working class person trying to survive. So why are you shaming me? It's kind of like a big thing for me. And, you know, like when you look at workers, you know, and I have so many, because I actually did used to do factory work. I did used to do warehouse work. I did used to be a waitress. Like I actually did these things, you know, before, during, and after sex work. And, you know, so it's like really unfortunate that I can say that, you know, oh yeah, my knees are shot because I, you know, was like a waiter for so many years. But then I can also be like, oh, my knees are shot because I'm a sex worker. Like, well, get off the fuck off your knees, whore. You know, and it's like,
right.
The connotations. And that's something too, because even like when you mentioned like the GoFundMe's for someone who like incurs injuries on the work, on whatever work they do, that was like, I had experienced that because I had gotten a really bad car accident in 2015, rolled the car we were in, and I broke my collarbone. I couldn't work. And for me, like I would see people having GoFundMe's for whatever their, you know, society accepts version of labor. But then for me, I was just not able to pay my bills because how dare I start a GoFundMe or how dare I ask for help when all I do is sex work? It's like, what?
Right.
It's insane.
Yeah. It's really not seen as work. And it's just, it's really so unfortunate because it adds to stigma on so many levels. But then also it really does lead to this, like, it's just one of those things that's going to bite people in the ass in the long run, because it really is leading to this like idealized version of what a worker is. But no, that really is a thing though, because, and you know, I've talked about this before. So we talk about like these concepts of like masculinity and ableism and all these things. And it's like, conservatives have this like sort of idealized version of men and masculinity. We're like, oh, everyone's like a Spartan. And it's like, fucking Mitch McConnell is your leader. Shut the fuck up. I could have said it better myself. Mitch McConnell, nigga. Like, when was the last time you saw a swole Republican in office? Never. But it really is that like sort of idealized, like fetishized version of what the best version of a person is. And when it comes to leftists, unfortunately, a lot of them do have that like, you know, that like old Soviet propaganda where it's like, you know, the workers with like the sickle and the hammer and like all those things are fantastic. But being able to be on your feet for 14 hours a day and make a thing like a chair or a table or packaged food, that doesn't actually make you better than me.
Right.
You know, people don't really want to have that conversation, and I really think like that's where the left is failing in a lot of ways.
Yeah, right. Well, and I also think that like I think that the question of like what sex are these people having is important because they're like imagining that this utopia is going to mean that everybody's desires are like lined up perfectly, which makes no sense to anyone who
that's ever happened ever.
Right. Like,
no, absolutely.
You know, like you're right. In my work, I do tons of things that like aren't my thing, but I do them because that's what my clients want. And, you know, I may get something from that. I might get paid. I may think it's fun, but I wouldn't just do it for like, you know, because I woke up one morning and decided that it would be fun to like do this elaborate thing.
And I think that there's like a level of, like offendedness about it, right? Because now you're talking about people the way that like call center people talk about people. Like, if I was not getting paid, I would not let you talk to me like this on the phone. But that's kind of in some ways what a sex worker is like. If you were not paying for me this, I would not offer you this service because this is not what I want to do. Like, I'm not into it, my kink, you know. But then
we were talking about that last night. We were talking about like our partners who were like, they don't see the same thing that, like, we're not doing the same thing with them.
They're not getting the persona in bed. They're getting me, like, in sweatpants and full of Nutella. Like,
girl, not Nutella. What are you doing?
I even have clients I've written about this too who are like, oh, I wish I had like a woman like you. And I'm like, but my partner doesn't even have a woman like that.
I wish I had a woman like you. Are you sure?
He's so lucky because he gets this. And I'm like, But does he? How do you know that? I mean, I don't know my partner, but like, I'm not a sex worker for him.
Yeah.
Exactly. And yeah, so a lot of people don't appreciate it. And I hope, all I have now is like the Thor like meme in my head. Or GIF where he was like, hammer. Is it though?
Yeah, I mean, I think those are all like important questions, because this idea that like nobody will have to do sex work, maybe nobody will have to do sex work, but who's going to meet like the demand? Like there's still going to be like you can't in demand like by ending capitalism. It doesn't make any sense.
Like, yeah, and like, people get really mad when I say this, but it's true. As I don't care how many revolutions you have, or if we're in this like, like post-communist utopia, or, whatever, everyone's needs are met. There is somewhere, some way, some man who wants to get pegged. Someone has to do it. But that's really how it is, though, because people's sexuality is complex. Not everybody does want, like, the standard, like, oh, missionary, penis and vagina sex.
Right.
There are people who are into kinks. There are people, like, there's people who want to get flogged. There's people who want to be spanked. There's people who want to be pegged. There's people, all these things. And it's like, having the material needs to feel comfortable does not like necessarily diminish your sexual kinks. So
those
that's
desires, yeah. Right.
That's really weird to me. Excuse me. To suggest that, and it's like, so, what are you actually saying? But then also, I have this thing that a lot of these people who are like, oh, post-revolution, everyone's just going to go to a factory and work. It's so like gray and drab and joyless, and I feel like that's how they want their sex lives to be, and that's
sign me up. No.
Yeah, so like
it's gonna be like me in the like post apocalypse, just me and my vibrator, like.
That's
But there really is a whole problem around the idea that people have sex for pleasure,
right,
or have sex to pass time.
Yeah,
like I masturbate all the time. Like, and people laugh, but honestly, it's like I'm not even that horny all the time, but it's actually like a pain reliever thing for me.
Yeah.
Like I get that little like endorphin rush, like, oh, I can now make it through the rest of my, because I have chronic pain. I can now make it through the rest of my day, shit like that. And it doesn't have to be about having babies or making Jesus happy or whatever the fuck y'all be doing. I don't fucking know. I don't know. It makes me so tired.
Right.
But no, sex is pleasurable, and it's like so unfortunate that we as a species are capable of having these really like nuanced and intense conversations about sex and sexuality and pleasure and consent and boundaries and kinks and fetishes, but then at the end of the day it's all like, who the fuck is it, like a Lila Micklethwait? No sex. But we are like literally, whether as I was told, living among Christians, very conservative Christians, is that sex was supposed to be something that was enjoyed between husband and wives, but they don't even be doing that.
No.
Look, all I know is I have been stuck in a house with my children since COVID started, and they are going to their godmother's house this weekend, and I'm like fucking ready. In like 3 hours, I'm going to be so fucking hammered. First time in a year, people.
Oh my gosh, how long are they going to be gone?
Just for the weekend. I got to get it in and get it done, and
yeah.
But no, I think that this really is a conversation, and like in a general sense, it makes me really sad in a lot of ways that like not just that like these anti-sex conversations are happening, because of course you expect fucking conservatives to do this, like who they are, but it makes me sad that they're like bringing in like a whole new generation of like baby queers and baby leftists to be like like repeat these talking points and regurgitate this shit, and it's like, what are we doing? You know what I mean? That's like the biggest thing to me is
I feel like there's like it's interesting that you bring up the baby queers. It feels to me like there's a movement toward like much more conservative sexual politics among young people. It feels like that to me, but I don't want to be like someone in my mid 40s who's like, those young people, which is exactly what I just said.
No, I just appreciate the fact you said feels like, as if it's not actively happening in front of all our faces.
I know. I just didn't want to say like those young people, but it feels very conservative, and I don't know.
It is very conservative. It is. Well, yeah. I mean, I think that's like, oh my God, I hate liberals so much. I just do. Like, they're such pieces of shit. But no, this really, in my opinion, is a thing that, like, because we had Obama 2 terms and, whatever fucking goofy shit and fucking, we spent all this time feeling smug as liberals. Not necessarily us. We're better than liberals, but you know what I mean. But no, liberals really did spend all this time feeling smug and like, oh, Obama's in office and fucking notorious RBG, whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
Whatever the fuck. But like that really was a thing, is that like liberals really felt like they were untouchable while conservatives were planning, because that's what the fuck conservatives do.
Right. Yeah.
And so now here we are, and like, I could see it in the pride conversations, right? I don't know if y'all watch it. No, can't get pride.
No, can't get pride.
Yeah, that's insane.
What kind of bootlicker shit are we doing right now? Right.
Yeah. And the justification for it slightly different, but it's the same outcome. Like,
it's definitely the same outcome. Yeah. Well, I think that I have a podcast. It's called the Black Podcast. You should check me out. I'm fucking hilarious. But no, seriously though, no, I'm not even joking when I said this, like literally like 2 days ago on my own podcast, is that one of the things that people do not understand about this like conservative Christian anti-sex thing is that it's like based in an entire social hierarchy. So they don't just want a theocracy. They intentionally want a system that has a very strictly coded sort of hierarchy. And one of the shitty things about this hierarchy is that you're not allowed to have more bodily autonomy or freedoms than the person above you. Right? And so then we talk about like Black people, you are not allowed to have more autonomy and freedoms than white people. We talk about indigenous folks, you're not allowed to have more autonomy and freedoms than white people. And then even when we get to like groups of white people, white queers, fuck y'all niggas. Y'all are not allowed to have more rights and bodily autonomy than, hetero white people or cis white people. Right? And then like you keep going. And even when you get to a point where you could even be talking about like a class privileged cis hetero Christian white able-bodied woman, she's still not allowed to have more bodily autonomy and freedom than a man who is white. And like, and I don't think that we talk about necessarily the fact that hierarchy is a significant part of their belief system.
Yeah.
Right? And so like when we're talking about things that are anti-sex, it's like, oh, because like a hetero cis white man said so, right? And we're talking about even like the anti-abortion shit, right? You're not, if you're poor, you're not allowed to do that because rich people said so. Or if you're black, you're not allowed to do it because white people said so, right? And so it's that thing about the social hierarchy of you're not allowed to have more autonomy and freedom than the person above you. And I think that's where a lot of this shit comes from. And so people really have internalized that. We're like, oh, I'm actually not allowed to enjoy sex. But you are.
Yeah.
And I also hate like the sort of actually I don't know if there's a term. Is there a term for like a generic washing of a thing? Is there like a term for that? I don't know.
Yeah.
In this context, I don't know.
Yeah, like in this context in particular, what bothers me about like things like sex work and porn is people is like, but I saw porn and like this poor woman got tied up and some dude stuck his dick in her face until she threw up, and it's like, you do know that you don't have to watch that type of porn.
Yeah, there's other stuff out there.
Like right now, I literally follow dozens of sex workers who their entire porn shit is like eating pussy.
Yeah.
You can just watch you can watch pussy eating all the fuck long day.
I only watch
unless you're trying to be offended. You saw.
Yeah.
So what's really bad and what's really good, you know, but like, that is part of the thing is like, you're not allowed to enjoy things. So you always have to like search out the worst possible.
Well, that's the whole Kevin McKinnon thing. Like, let me lay out the worst possible porn
cherry
I can find. And condemn an entire industry based on my extremely biased cherry pick sample.
That was just a tweet that Layla put out that I actually replied to not too long ago, maybe a few weeks ago. It was something about a generalization of porn. I'm like, you do know a lot of this is people who are actors and actresses paying to set up a scene. These are not real scenes. Like, you realize that, right? This isn't like Voyeur World on Pornhub. That's not what this is. It's insane.
But no, seriously, that is a thing. And it really does bother me, like on a level where like, if that's not what you're into, you do not have to watch that. But you're choosing to watch that and then complain about it and frame it as a problem with, you know, an entire industry or whatever. And like, that's very frustrating to me because there are, you know, actors and there are videos out of people not doing those things because, and like, people get really mad when you say this, but like porn has more choices than like any other type of media.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because like, when is the last time you saw a superhero movie with some dude who didn't look like fucking Captain America?
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Oh wait, we had Black Panther. We got one. But like seriously though, and so it's like, it's wild to me that people will watch you know, like TV shows and all these movies where basically everyone kind of looks the same, but then we have porn where you can literally any category, right? Fat girls, skinny girls, tall girls, short girls, eating pussy, BDSM. Like it doesn't matter what your thing is, you can find someone who's doing that thing. And you know, I don't think it's necessarily celebratory in a sense that like porn should be celebrated because it's just work. And I don't think work should be celebrated because it gets like this weird, as I was talking about earlier, the weird fetishizing of workers. But like, why is it that you're more offended that adults do porn than the fact that the Boy Scouts just got shut down for what now?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what did the Boy Scouts get sued for? Right. What is the Catholic Church embroiled in?
Yeah. And then it's all the Catholic organizations actively fighting about CSAM, and then it's the Catholic Church involved. Wait, what?
Yeah.
So hold on. Let's focus on the other giant problem in the room. Like,
the call is coming from inside the house.
For real.
Like, at every level. And like, that's so wild to me. Like, to be honest, that people will literally be like, oh, we can't do this or we can't do that. You know, because it's like sinful or it's immoral, but it's like, what the fuck are y'all actually doing? Like,
yeah.
I don't know. It's weird. All I'm saying is I would feel more comfortable leaving my child around porn stars than priests.
I'd co-sign that message. Yeah,
absolutely. All of our babysitters are our friends, and all of our friends are sex workers. Mm-hmm. My kids like go to school, or one of my kids went to school next to the strip club that lots of our friends work at, and they're like, "Oh, you work? Okay, cool."
More of this, please. Yes.
And I'm like, sex workers are the best babysitters. I mean, we have like very flexible schedules.
Flexible schedules, but also like on a dead ass serious note, who else understands consent and boundaries better?
Well, no one. Absolutely.
Like honestly, yeah. I would absolutely leave my kids with sex workers before anyone else, like just for that alone.
We hope you enjoyed this bonus footage from this episode of On the Horizon, and we look forward to having you tune in next time.